this video, we're going to talk about the amazing skill of how to make something big out of nothing or almost nothing. This was about 3 years ago. I was invited to a conference in Argentina. This driver Julio picked me up from the airport, and we're driving. There's a lot of traffic, and it's almost going to be a 30-40 minutes ride in the cab. So Julio started talking to me just like he does with all his customers, like where are you from, why are you in Buenos Aires, all of that. So I started talking to him in Spanish and told him that I'm here to talk about science of success. And here his ears picked up. He's like, see sir, people like you will give training and resources to the rich people, and people like us never get this opportunity. We don't know the big people to make big money. So I'm a very hardworking guy, but I don't think I'll be able to do much in life. My chances are very limited because I don't know a lot of people. I don't have much. So I decided to give him a little talk. So I told him about this story. There was this monk who was traveling from villages to villages, and he get to this village late in the night. And that particular night, he had this desire to eat some soup, warm soup. And he sits down under this big, huge tree. All he had was a little bag on his shoulder, with just a couple of pots and a few clothes. So he opens this pot and puts in front of him, puts some fire around it, puts some water, and just start looking at it. So the villagers around that tree, they're walking by, they will see and ask this monk, what are you doing? Why are you boiling water? So he said, no, this is a magic pot. I am making soup. So they were all surprised, like this monk must know something they don't know. So they started asking, they were curious. So he said, with this magic pot, I can make anything I want. So tonight, I'm going to make soup. So the villagers were there. They said, "Can we look at it? Can we sit here and watch you make the soup?" He said, "Yes, but you know what? If we had a little bit more carrot in the soup, it will taste much better." So one of the villagers run home and bring the carrots, and then he says, if you bring some potatoes also, it will taste much better. And also I'm going to share the soup with many of you. So somebody else goes home, brings potatoes, and so on and so forth. He asks for spices and celery and cilantro. And before you know, he had everything he needed to make the soup. And one by one, he started putting all of this stuff in that boiling water. And in half an hour, the soup is ready. And he's able to share this with all the villagers, and they were happy that this soup tastes so good because there was power of community. There was some mystic. There was a story behind it. So everybody tasted the soup, said it was amazing soup. It's so delicious. Well, the point here is that you need resourcefulness, not resources, to make something. So by the time I finished the story, my hotel came, and I went off, and I told Julio that remember that story anytime you feel stuck in life. So about 2 months ago, I get this email from Julio. He had my business card, there was my email. He said, "Thank you, sir. I remembered that story every time I got depressed, I got defeated, I failed. And that story has always helped me. Because of that start you gave, today I have a fleet of about 25 taxis." As far as I remember, when I was talking to him 3 years ago, he was driving somebody else's taxi. He had no money, he had no connections. So how did he get there? So I have few different businesses I run in US, in India, in Colombia. I manage a portfolio of millions of dollars of my own money. But my real passion is understanding the science of success. So my instinct told me that I should call him and find out what exactly he did. I was so curious to figure out how did he make this money in 3 years. So I called him up and asked him how he did it. So he said, after he dropped me from in the hotel, he went and started thinking about that story, about that moat. And he thought, what does he has right now? So what he had a lot of contacts of all his passengers. He's used to drop from airport to different hotels. Most of these are young, rich, successful people. Most of these were rich families, successful people, foreigners. So he had lots and lots of these contacts in his diary, or he had all of these business cards. And on the other hand, he was a very social guy. So he knew at least 50 to 100 taxi drivers in Buenos Aires. So he started thinking, what can he do with what he had? He started thinking how to become resourceful. So what he did is, he started cold calling all these people, all the business card he had, and he started telling them that I just started a taxi service. Any time of the day, anywhere you want to go, just give me a call. Here's my phone number. Just save my number. That's what he told the customers, the rich people. And then he told his friends who were taxi drivers, he told them that I have this huge database of customers. Anytime you are working, just send me a message on my WhatsApp that you're working from, let's say 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or whatever. And if you're available for taking a passenger, and I'll refer your taxi to these people and you'll give me 20%. So they said, yeah. Many times they're just sitting around, they don't have a passenger, so it will be good if Julio sends them the passenger. And that was just a small start. And he started getting commission from each ride. And while doing that, he was also driving the taxi and making money. So he had these two businesses going hand in hand. Before you know, in 6-7 months, his wife started to become his secretary because he was getting so many calls for taxi service, and he started building little bit of cash. And with this cash, he went to the bank, he borrowed some money, got his first taxi, then the second, and it's like a snowball, right? So with the 3 taxi, his cash flow increased. With that cash flow, he was able to afford 3 more taxis. So 3 becomes 6, 6 becomes 12, and now 3 years later, the 12 become 25. So the story here is not about resources. A lot of us, when we think about starting a business or solving a problem or helping other people, we think, what do I have? What kind of resources I have? How can I give this money to somebody else? How can I apply my talent? So that's a very limited way of thinking. You got to think with your resources, how can you be creative? How can you have different combinations of your resources and your contacts to make something bigger? So the sum has to be bigger than the parts. 1 plus 1 is not 2. 1 plus 1 has to be 3. And that's where the creative entrepreneur, creative artist makes something happen from nothing. Now, the first exercise here is think about what is it you're trying to achieve. So let's say it's starting a bakery or writing a book or being a famous artist. Once you know where you want to go, then start thinking, what do you have? Who do you know? What kind of talent you have? What kind of skills you have? What kind of resources you have? Maybe it's only a few $1,000s in the bank. Maybe you know 3 or 4 people. Now these 3 or 4 people will know 3 or 4 more people. And those people will know more people. So let's say you're trying to get connections in the movie industry. So look at who you know. And from who you know, who is closest to that industry. And from that, he will introduce you to somebody else. And that somebody else will introduce you to somebody else. And that's how you get to your end goal. So start making a list of resources and be creative as to how you can use these resources to make something which you really, really want. So that's your first exercise.